Good morning, everyone. I want to start this morning with the big picture. We talked yesterday about the challenges we're facing with Omicron, and I want to just review the basics again because it's so important. Omicron is a real challenge. It's going to be a very challenging few weeks. But the good news is, based on what our healthcare leadership understands at this moment, we are talking about a matter of weeks. We're going to see a really fast upsurge in cases. We're going to see a lot of New Yorkers affected by Omicron. So far, thank God, based on everything we've seen so far, the cases are more mild than what we've experienced previously. But again, a lot of research we're still waiting for, a lot of evidence we're still waiting for. What we do know is Omicron moves very fast. It's very transmissible. It moves fast. We have to move faster. That's why we're focusing even more on vaccination. And we do know that vaccination helps address Omicron. So bottom line, fast spreading variant. We're going to see a surge in cases for a few weeks. Then we think we're going to see it start to trail off. The answer is vaccination. Getting folks vaccinated who are not yet vaccinated, getting folks to get those boosters makes a huge difference in terms of how people will do working their way through this next few weeks, protecting themselves. Also has a lot to say with what our hospitals will experience. The more people who are vaccinated, the more people get the boosters, the better off our hospitals will be as well. And our healthcare heroes who have seen us through these last 2 years now, a lot of the same people every single day fighting this fight. Do yourself a favor, do them a favor. Get that vaccination, get your child that vaccination, get that booster. That is the key to fighting Omicron. So with that, I want to go into the fact that we will get past Omicron. We will continue our recovery in this city. Vaccination will be the key to all of this. And New York City continues to lead the way in this country in terms of huge numbers of people vaccinated and aggressive approaches to getting even more folks vaccinated. As of today, New York City has hit a couple of important milestones. We now have 6 million New York City adults with at least one dose of the vaccine. 6 million adults in this city have had at least one dose, and that number is climbing every single day. We're now over 600,000 of our kids who have had at least one dose, and we're doing great, really great, with the group of kids in that 12 to 17-year-old range. We gotta get more progress, though, with the 5 to 11-year-olds. This is one of the areas where we need to move faster. I'm urging all family members, get your youngest kids vaccinated. So it's great that 600,000 New York City kids have already been vaccinated, but we need to get to literally hundreds of thousands more. And of course, the overall amount of doses in the city, outstanding, unprecedented, historic, more coming. And that includes what's happening today with the mandate going into effect for childcare and early intervention programs. That vaccine mandate going into effect for those employees, that's over 102,000 employees who work with our kids. And we got the question yesterday from the media, is it important for kids to keep going to childcare? Absolutely. Dr. Choksi was very, very clear about this. Yes, it's really important for kids who are in childcare programs to keep going for all the great reasons that parents put their kids in those programs to begin with, but also because they're safe places for kids to be. All the health and safety precautions that are being taken in childcare programs in schools make them particularly safe places for kids to be. And obviously the fact that we have put mandates on all the adults who work with kids, making sure those adults are vaccinated, that is crucial. So the bottom line is we need to keep our focus on vaccination. We need to realize that we have an amazing tool to fight back against Omicron. And most people, the vast majority of people, are taking full advantage, but there's still more who could. And if we act urgently, it will make a huge difference right now as we're in the middle of this challenge. Now, I want you to hear from someone who understands, as we start this mandate for childcare facilities, she understands how important it is to protect the people who do this crucial work and the children and families they serve. She has been a leader on issues of concern to families. She is focused on making sure we get resources where they're needed to support our families. She was the chair of the Women's Caucus in the City Council and has done so much to help make sure people in her district get vaccinated. My pleasure to introduce Councilmember Helen Rosenthal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate you and agree with you 100%. Mandates work. What you're doing this morning, mandating that over 100,000 city childcare workers get vaccinated against COVID, is smart prevention policy. Let's assume each childcare worker takes care of 4 to 5 children on average. You are protecting the lives of nearly half a million children plus their families. You know, this morning I presented a proclamation to the Council of Jewish Women for New York City for their unbelievable work on behalf of our seniors here on the Upper West Side. And the executive director, Andrea Kopal, told me she saw you on CNN this week. She said you cut through the bullshit. You were talking about how mandates are going to be good for small businesses. She said, and I agree with her, that you have been such a great leader during this time. It's going to be part of your legacy. Talking about her own senior center here on West 72nd Street, she said, she is serving vulnerable populations and we have to protect them. And now you are protecting our city's children. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Council Member. Thank you. As always, you do everything with passion. I know you've been passionately supporting the vaccination efforts in your district and around the city, and it helps. And I want to just emphasize, thank you, Council Member, and thank you to everyone who's out there doing the work, vaccinating New Yorkers. Our healthcare heroes are out there, the vaccinators are out there, Test and Trace Corps, all these folks who are giving their all to get more and more people vaccinated, to get people their boosters. It makes a huge impact. And speaking of boosters, now over 1.7 million New Yorkers have gotten their booster shot, 1.7 million already. That's fantastic. But there's a lot more people who can get that shot and help protect themselves and everyone else. So go get boosted today. If you qualify, get boosted today. It makes a huge impact. And another reminder, as we continue using every tool we have, a week from today, the mandate goes in effect for the whole private sector in New York City, the vaccine mandate that we knew we needed, in part because of Omicron. We had no idea Omicron would move this fast. Well, that mandate is even more pertinent now. We need it to keep us safe, and we're getting a lot of cooperation from the private sector, understanding we've got to defeat Omicron, we've got to avoid shutdowns, we've got to avoid restrictions, we've got to keep moving forward. Vaccination is the key. Okay, now, knowing that the challenge is Omicron, knowing that vaccination is the most important tool, let's also talk about another crucial piece of the equation, which is testing. Testing helps us on so many levels. It helps to make sure that each person knows where they stand. On the very personal level, when you get tested, you know what's going on, you know what to do. If you test positive, there's so much support there for you through our Test and Trace Corps. We'll get whatever you need, whether it is a hotel room to isolate in, whether it is food, medical support, amazing array of supports, all for free. So if you test positive, there's a lot of help available for you. If you test negative, great, you know you don't have COVID. But getting tested is absolutely crucial, and making sure we have enough sites, enough resources, enough test kits. We're working on all these fronts. And not a surprise, we're finding the supplies are becoming a challenge because all over the country, testing is going up suddenly, and we're seeing a supply problem that needs to be addressed, and we're working on that, working with the White House, working with the private sector to get more supplies. But what we do know is we want to maximize the number of places that New Yorkers can get tested. So as of now, we have sponsored by the City of New York 89 testing sites in all 5 boroughs. Those are both the brick and mortar sites and the mobile sites. 23 more sites are coming online this week. 3 more mobile sites and 20 more brick and mortar sites. So by the end of this week, we're going to have 112 city-run sites in healthcare facilities, but also in other community settings, schools, libraries, community centers, you name it. So there'll be 112 test sites up by the end of this week. To find a site near you, you can go to nyc.gov/COVID test. And we're going to keep expanding test capacity constantly as we fight Omicron and as we get more and more supply in, including in-home testing, which is going to be a really key piece of this puzzle. but another area where we got to get a lot more supply to meet the demand we are experiencing now. We are now testing, in fact, more people than ever. 130,000 plus daily in the city sites. That is double the number of tests just 3 weeks ago. That's how fast things are ramping up. This intense effort will keep growing as long as we need it to grow to address the demand. And what we're trying to do as much as possible is get those in-home test kits in play, particularly where we're seeing long lines. Wherever possible, we're trying to, particularly at our city-run sites, if there's a long line, offer people the alternative of giving them an in-home test that they can take home with them. Again, we need to get that supply up quickly to allow that to be an option for more and more people. But another reminder that testing is really important, particularly around the holiday season, to make sure you're in good shape to go visit everyone else and to make sure your loved ones are going to be safe. And obviously, as per usual, if anyone is not feeling well, don't come in contact with other folks. You know, stay away from them while you get tested, while you find out what's going on. If you test positive, you need to quarantine. We'll be there for you. If you test negative, great. But testing becomes even more important in terms of protecting each other and those we love in our families. I want you to hear more from our city's doctor on how to stay safe, particularly in this holiday season. My pleasure to introduce our health commissioner, Dr. Dave Choksi.
Thank you so much, as always, Mr. Mayor. And well, look, I know how much people have been looking forward to the holidays, but Omicron has changed the landscape and led to anxiety and confusion. So here's my best advice about navigating the coming days and weeks. First, plan your holidays around your most vulnerable family member. That may mean hosting a virtual gathering or moving activities outdoors or using masks, same-day tests, and distancing. I do advise older adults and others at higher risk to skip optional activities, particularly in crowded settings, at least for the next few weeks. For my own family, we've made some adjustments to holiday plans around my young daughter, who isn't yet eligible for vaccination. We decided to postpone some out-of-town travel until sometime in the new year, though we will still find ways to spend time with family, both locally and virtually. Second, common sense precautions can help us lower risk and still enjoy holiday festivities more safely. Beyond meeting up outdoors, you can improve ventilation by opening up windows and doors, and you can limit gatherings only to those who are fully vaccinated to help reduce risk. Tests, high-quality masks, and distancing add more layers of safety, as do booster doses. And I wanted to make sure to highlight the preliminary evidence announced by Moderna today that booster doses likely offer significant additional protection against the Omicron variant. Third, the people that I am most worried about with Omicron are those that remain unvaccinated. Please take extra precautions for yourself and for the safety of others, like avoiding travel. And remember that it's never too late to get vaccinated. Regular testing is particularly important for those who aren't yet fully vaccinated. Since demand for testing is high, consider taking regular home self-tests since supplies will increase. And if you test positive after taking a home self-test, you should call your provider or call us at 212-COVID-19 in order to be linked to care. This holiday may not be the one that we envisioned, but we can still make it a safe one and a healthy one, and of course, an enjoyable one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thanks, as always, for helping the people of the city know how to handle these challenging situations and ever-changing situations. But I will emphasize what Dr. Choksi said. This is something we expect to be a matter of weeks, and we're going to overcome this as we have overcome every other challenge along the way. And I want to say one more thing about testing. It's our obligation, all of us who work for the City of New York, to make sure we get testing right. And yesterday I got some very good questions from members of the media on concerns about test sites and things we have to do better. We've been working since yesterday afternoon to make some immediate improvements. And I want to say thank you to the members of the media who raised those questions and concerns, because it helps us to serve the public better. Special thank you to Mara Gay of the New York Times, who had some very specific suggestions about how we could improve the oversight of some of the sites, which in fact we are going to implement right away. So starting today, we're sending out supervisors from Test and Trace Corps to all of our private vendor test sites to make sure we have another measure of accountability. Again, we overall have had very good results from our test sites, including those run by vendors. But we want to make sure we have our eyes on them every day to make sure there's high quality and consistency and that the hours are as stated. We also know there have been particular challenges because as Omicron is spreading, some of the people who actually work at the test sites have been sick and have been out. We are establishing a core of reserve professionals that we can put into play quickly to keep each site to its stated hours. So we're going to be doing more to make sure there's continuity, consistency, quality at the test sites. But we welcome the feedback from the media and we welcome the feedback from all New Yorkers to know how we can do better. And we're going to keep making adjustments and improvements every step along the way as we fight through this challenge like we fought through all of them before. Okay, now I'm going to something very different now. And this is about someone who has fought a very noble fight for many years and with tremendous positive impact on all of us. And there are people who have changed the world in many ways. Some people change our consciousness, our minds. Some people create not just a specific moment of change, but a whole movement. Some people change things in a way that is profound. Well, this is a very special moment, a very special honor for me to recognize a New Yorker who has changed the world to its core and is the definition to me of what an effective activist does, including not only calling for change and acting for change and organizing for change, but always showing a love for humanity in the process, a hope and a belief that we can make the change. Now, like so many great New Yorkers, she didn't happen to be born here. She was born in Toledo, Ohio, and came to New York City like so many others, seeing a chance to make an impact here and live a life where she could fulfill her full potential, and she certainly did that. So, internationally renowned as a political leader, as a writer, as someone who defined feminism for this whole country and this whole world, but also, and very importantly, unlike some other people who focused on one piece or another of the social change puzzle, she always focused on what we now call intersectionality. She now always focused on the challenges of race and class as well, and talked about how we bring together the changes we need across all these parts of our society. She stood with me as we announced the Commission on Gender Equity in 2015. She stood with me again in 2019 as we called for paid personal leave, a fight that will continue. But we're talking about someone who has been a champion for just the best of what we all can be and must be. I'm going to talk about Gloria Steinem in a moment, but before I do, I want to, and I'm going to provide this honor to her, but before I do, I want to turn to someone who is my partner in all things, who has also led from the beginning of her life a vision of social change and what feminism means in real life and in practice that can reach so many people, and who said to me when we were thinking about the great New Yorkers who should be honored as we end our administration, Charlene McCray said, I can't think of anyone who's done more good for the world than Gloria Steinem, and she is right. My pleasure to introduce our First Lady, Charlene McCray.
Thank you, Bill. Can you hear me?
Indeed we can.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad I could join you this morning. Today is a special day for New Yorkers all over our city. Gloria is greatly admired and has influenced and transformed many lives over the years. Like many young women, I was inspired by the feminist movement and the dynamic activism of Gloria Steinem, along with others like Flo Kennedy, Bella Abzug, Shirley Chisholm, and so many others. They were outrageous and in a good way, and models of courage and focus. I know I'm not alone when I say it was important to see women like Gloria who demanded respect and took it upon themselves to raise our collective consciousness. It was important to see women who showed the nation that racial justice, gender equality, and the dignity of all people go hand in hand. They inspired me then, and they inspire me today. So I thank Gloria for her support. I appreciate how she was there for me and for this administration from the very beginning. It's been a great joy to get to know her these past 8 years and stand with her, whether it was to support survivors of gender-based violence or to demand flexibility for families with paid personal time. Her voice has always been pivotal because when Gloria Steinem speaks, people listen. I thank her for a lifetime, truly a lifetime of leadership. And I thank her for showing us that when someone says it can't be done, we should ignore them. She is a brilliant, brave, and incredible person who embodies the values of our great city. And for that, we praise and honor her. Thank you, Gloria Steinem. Back to you, Bill.
And thank you, Charlene McCray. And the last thing I want to say is very personal. Charlene and I, over the years, in dealing with all the challenges that come with leading this city, there's times when we've needed to look to people who really light the way and show you how to be an agent for change, but again, in a way that is so embracing and so hopeful. And in all of the times we've spent with Gloria, we've come away inspired, come away a little more energized, a little more hopeful on a very personal level. And we always say, Charlene and I always say, there are some angels in the world who help us all to keep going and be our best selves. And for us as a family, Gloria Steinem has been one of those angels. So with that, I will now move across the stage. And Gloria, it is my great honor to present to you on behalf of all of the people of New York City, the key to New York City.
A girl gang with me, as you can see.
Yes, indeed, please. The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, there is no city on earth in which I would be more honored to live. Oh, I get to sit down? Okay, all right, all right. Even when I was in Toledo, Ohio, as you point out, I was dreaming of living in New York City. I was reading the New York Times, hoping one day I would live here. And I must say that I've seen a lot of, I'm an old person, I've seen a lot of mayors, right? And you are the only mayor who has ever valued and talked about early childhood education. Yeah. I'm so, so grateful for that. And I can't imagine living in another place. I love this city, and it is a spirit now that is helping us through a very tough year. This is the example of courage in the world, and of wisdom, and of safety. I thank you so much for that. I'm going to do my best to live up to this glorious key. It's a little big to wear. But this is a high point of my very long life, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Your very good life, and I want to thank our friends from Betty who have joined you, who are fabulous.
Thank you. The singing group Betty, right?
Yes, the singing group Betty.
And Mona Senna, who represents 2 continents. And you know Carol, right?
Yes, you have your whole gang. But we are so appreciative to you, and you keep lighting the way. You just don't stop. And I think that's one more thing I want to say, Gloria. I have always admired. You could have years and years ago said, "Hey, I've made my contribution," and you would have been able to do so with tremendous respect and renown, and you could have just said, "That's enough." But every time I go to a rally, you're there, and every time someone needs to speak up, you're there. And I think for all of us who think about this as a lifelong mission, you're the exemplar of that. So thank you. All right. good news in the world, even as we deal with our challenges. Let's talk about our indicators. The first one, always my favorite, a great number today, 12,974,734 doses to date administered, and we expect a lot more. Again, people getting out there, getting those boosters, mandates coming into effect. That number we want to keep pushing up. But here are the challenges. Number 2, daily number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for suspected COVID-19. Today's report, 193 patients. Confirmed positivity, 35.05%. Hospitalization rate per 100,000 New Yorkers is now 1.80. And then new reported cases on a 7-day average. This increase we've talked about, very sudden. We expect that to continue for a period of weeks. Today's report, 6,989 cases. Now, a few words in Spanish about the importance of getting vaccinated to address Omicron. Las vacunas son la mejor manera de detener a Omicron. También estamos llevando más pruebas y a más de 100 sitios en la ciudad. Manténgase seguro y saludable. Vacúnase y hágase la prueba antes de los días de fiesta. With that, let's turn to our colleagues in the media. And please let me know the name and outlet of each journalist.
Good morning. We will now begin our Q&A. As a reminder, we are joined by Health Commissioner Dr. Dave Chokshi, Dr. Mitch Katz, President and CEO of New York City Health and Hospitals, and Dr. Ted Long, Director of New York City's Test and Trace. Our first question for today goes to Andrew Siff from NBC.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and everyone on the call. Can you hear me?
Yes, Andrew, how you doing today?
Doing well, thanks for asking. I want to drill down on the problems in terms of the long lines for testing and the lack of availability in many neighborhoods across the city. Did your office or the health department make a conscious decision last month to scale down testing by 20 sites? And if so, why was that decision made, given that even without Omicron, there was going to be a surge in testing demand ahead of the holidays?
You know, Andrew, let me start, and I'll turn to Dr. Mitch Katz in a moment. We saw a very decreased demand at some of the sites. We moved to a focus on mobile sites where we're getting really good results. And obviously, Omicron then changed the whole picture, and we started to ramp everything up again, and we are quickly ramping up. So we were responding to the experiences we were having, and we did not, and I've been very clear about this in what I said yesterday, we did not expect Omicron to move quite this quickly. And so we are moving quickly to adjust, but we will. Dr. Katz. Can we hear? Doctor?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Well, I'm as cranky and demanding as any born in New York City person. But, you know, I have to say the test and trace core doubled in the last 3 weeks its testing capacity. And I acknowledge that and that was just in 3 weeks, sir, that we did twice as many tests. So yes, I'm sorry that demand was so enormous over the last few days. We did not anticipate so much news about Omicron. We did not anticipate that the supply chain would run out of the home tests. In my own pharmacies last week, there were shelves and shelves of home tests to take care of the demand. When I went by yesterday, there were none. So yes, we had a lot of people online, and we appreciate that. We appreciate that New Yorkers wanted to get tested, that they're following your guidance. I'm very pleased to say we're going to be opening new testing sites all of this week so that we have more than 100 testing sites going. We have moved more to mobile testing sites, and we do constantly close testing sites and move them to places where the demand is. I mean, that's part of our model. So when someone says, well, we closed X site, that's only because our own community advisory board said you're going to reach more people if you move from here to there. So we constantly are moving them to try to reach New Yorkers in the greatest of need. We're going to keep expanding to meet that need. And I feel really confident that New Yorkers this week will have a different experience than they did this weekend. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead, Andrew.
When it comes to your assessment that Omicron is mild and it's still based on preliminary data, is this primarily looking at the hospitalization rates in South Africa and other countries right now? Is this from lab analysis of how it's interacting with people who are contracting it? How concerned are you that that conclusion might be premature?
That's a great question, Andrew. I'm going to go back to Dr. Katz in a moment, but let me say this. We have looked at all the things you mentioned. We've looked at the research that's been done. We looked at the experience in South Africa. We've looked at our own experience already here in the city on the ground. And that's what we're seeing so far. I think it's absolutely right to say that's preliminary. Absolutely right to say we're going to constantly need to learn more, because that's the whole story of COVID for 2 years. But we are seeing, certainly right now in our hospitals, much better outcomes than what we would have feared, and certainly than what we experienced not only in the spring of 2020, but even last winter. We're seeing a much, much better experience. So that's what we know so far, but we are going to be vigilant and always looking for more evidence. Dr. Katz.
Yes, sir. As you say, COVID, if it teaches nothing, it teaches humility. So we are, constantly looking at data. We could be wrong, but at this moment, it certainly looks like Omicron does not cause as severe disease as we've seen with Delta. One of the things that's positive is, in general, it seems that when people are in the hospital, they have shorter stays. They do not need as intensive treatment as what we've seen before. That part of that is that our own treatments are better. Part of it is that more of the people who get hospitalized now have been vaccinated, and so they have immunity, or they have prior exposure to the virus, and they do not get as sick. So that has made a major difference. When people don't need to stay in the hospital as long, it prevents the hospitals from being overwhelmed. I think we'll know the answer in a week or two of exactly what proportion of New Yorkers who get COVID wind up sick enough to be in the hospital. But I can assure you, sir, that all of our hospitals have plans for how we will expand. We worked on it all weekend. We're doing fine right now, but if we do have to expand, I'll remind New Yorkers that when Health and Hospital had to triple our ICUs in 6 weeks, we tripled our ICUs in 3 weeks. We're prepared. We know how to do this. If we have to do it, we will. But at least so far, sir, it looks like it will not be necessary to have that level of expansion. Thank you.
Thank you.